I'm Dr. Vijay Murthy. I'm with Spencer Doman, who works at the Institute for Achievement of Human Potential. And you have a very unique way of assessing children's mental age. Can you explain a little bit about?
Sure. So this is the Institute's developmental profile. And what the developmental profile does is it shows the major developmental milestones that children reach in their development up until 6 years of age. And what we do using this profile is we can evaluate how a child is progressing in their vision, in hearing, in tactility, in mobility, in speech, and in manual competence.
Okay, Spencer, why are you specifically interested in these 6 areas? Is there a reason why you have 3 areas on one side and 3 other areas on the other side of this chart?
Well, we're very interested in the sensory areas of the brain, okay, the sensory pathways, because those are the pathways that are carrying information into the brain. So we know that in order to help a child's brain growth and development, we need to utilize those sensory pathways. So
give me an example. For instance, is it something like we both are looking at the camera,
right,
and the way how our eyes perceive what we are seeing,
absolutely,
and how it interprets. So that's the sensory.
Absolutely,
part.
because everything that you, I, or any other person in the world learns is through our 5 sensory pathways, right? We can see, we can hear, we can feel, we can taste, we can smell. Everything you and I have learned, we've learned through those pathways. So we know that in order to teach a child, and in order to actually impact the brain, we have to utilize those 5 pathways.
Yes, yeah. And what are the other 3, which are the motor pathways and not the sensory ones?
Yes.
What's the importance of that?
Well, the motor pathways are, of course, very important because that's the way we can express ourselves. So we can express ourselves through our speech, through our movement, or through our manual ability. Mm-hmm. So if we can help a child reach let's say normality in these 6 areas, they can function like anyone else can. So that's the goal, to get children functioning at normality in all of these areas.
Okay, so this makes sense if you're looking at children who do not have any difficulties in terms of learning or expressing. Or what is your particular work about, which is, of course, you do use these methods to help children who are well,
yeah,
but your institute has had a huge success in actually helping children who otherwise are considered not able to learn.
right,
With the diagnosis of, say, autism or ADHD, it could be Down syndrome, or can be cerebral palsy. Are you saying that this evaluation and the methods that you use can help these children too?
Absolutely, because what it does is it gives us a personalized profile of that child and shows us exactly, when I say us, I mean the institutes and the staff of the institutes. It shows us where the child has needs and where they might be developing normally. And then as soon as we know those needs, then we can create a personalized program for that child to address those needs.
Give me an example. For instance, there are the various ages, or chronological age is the age that we calculate from the time a baby is born.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But that may not correlate with the various other ages, which generally is called mental age.
Yes. Yeah, we call it neurological age.
Neurological.
Yes. We call it
So
neurological age.
what's the difference between mental age and neurological age?
Well, I would say that neurological age we calculate by doing this specific evaluation, which is all about functional ability. How is the child functioning from a neurological standpoint? And then we have a mathematical model that we use to then calculate the neurological age. I think that mental age could even mean various things to different people.
Yes.
So even when we talk about mental ability, people might think psychological or intellectual. So I think because this is a comprehensive evaluation, that's why we say it's neurological. We're really looking at how the brain is growing as a whole.
Yeah, so what's interesting to note is that when we talk about mental age, we are only talking about certain aspects of brain function.
Correct.
Whereas when you're looking at neurological age, you are considering the entire nervous system and its impact on the child's or the individual's ability to understand the world and to react to the world, to respond to it.
Absolutely.
Right?
And for example, I work for our intellectual department here at the Institute, so my principal work is designing programs for children to develop them intellectually. But I do know that it is essential to also take other approaches to help a child from an intellectual perspective by addressing that child physiologically and physically to help them grow intellectually.
So for instance, physiologically, as in some children might have the wrong nutrition
Absolutely.
for their particular condition. Or
Absolutely. So for example, for me and the other intellectual staff, if you bring a child to me with special needs and maybe they're struggling to learn, you ask me, how can I help that child? The first thing I'm going to ask is, how's the child's diet? You know, are there sugary foods? Are there processed foods in the child's diet? Junk foods that are having a negative, that are creating a negative neurological, let's say, response.
Yeah. So you correct the child's or the individual's nutritional needs.
Absolutely.
And then you also help children to use their body, mobility, to improve their motor activity.
Correct.
But then your particular specialization is in helping children with their cognition.
That's right.
Or intellectual abilities.
That's
so
exactly
let's say,
right.
for example, a child who is 2 years old is still has an intellectual ability which is at the very basic level, which is earlier.
Right.
Say let's say we find the child in this particular square.
Yeah.
What do you do to shift from here to the higher levels?
So, first of all, we look at how can we stimulate that child to move him up in his ability. So, the way the profile is laid out, it's laid out very simply. You know, it tells you what are the milestones. So, for example, if you have a child, let's say, who only has a light reflex, that's the only visual ability he has, and you say, okay, how are we going to get him up here? Well, I think one obvious tactic would be, well, let's stimulate for this level. Let's stimulate his vision in a way that will help him reach this level.
So in a way, what you're doing is that you do not just take the child's ability as it is, but then you challenge.
Absolutely.
And you help the brain catch up to the challenge, which is the stimuli.
Absolutely.
And you say it works even in children with autism.
Absolutely. And we know, not from, of course, personal experience with treating children, but also this has been replicated over and over again in research, that the brain can change according to the environment. So that with increased stimulation and with increased opportunity, the brain, through neuroplasticity, can grow and change. And even now, research is showing that new brain cells can actually be created throughout our lifetime and survive. It's called neurogenesis. If we challenge the brain. Problem solving is a very important part of keeping those new brain cells alive.
Thank you so much, Spencer. And I will be talking to Spencer about, the very concept that use it or lose it tends to be something which we apply in age-dependent, age-related conditions when people are of advanced age. But what Spencer Doman is talking about is that use it or lose it can even apply to children with genetic predisposition or what is generally considered a genetic anomaly, and you can stimulate the neurological system to improve their intellectual ability, physical ability.
Absolutely.
By looking at it from a holistic perspective. I will be talking to Spencer Doman on Unlock Your Health, and for the full radio interview, which will be for 45 minutes, where Spencer is going to explain the mechanism of how this can be achieved, which can be a great hope for all those parents, the children who they have had less hope about because they might be diagnosed with autism or or ADHD and other conditions. So do stay tuned to www.uyhradio.com, and I'll be talking more about this with Spencer Doman. Thank you. Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you, Doc.